Hey there. I want to take a minute just talk about Elvis because I've been kind of obsessing on him a little bit lately. Now, I've always been a huge fan. I go through stages, where I nonstop listen to his music and watch a bunch of his movies and listen to documentaries and read his books and blah, 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 blah. And then I go through a spell where I go back to whatever music I'm listening to at the time. And then something happens, makes me think about it, and then I go back to obsessing over Elvis again. Well, the new Elvis movie that came out recently really got me going. And out of all the things I've seen, I just finished watching the first movie about Elvis that was ever made, which was ironically made by John Carpenter, who made The Thing and Halloween and The Fog and They Live and Big Trouble in Little China. He made the first Elvis movie, and he cast Kurt Russell, fresh out of being a Disney guy who was in a 10-year contract with Disney, making all those movies. He's the most lucrative actor that Disney ever had, Kurt Russell. And weirdly enough, and the family says this themselves, no one knows why, the last words Walt Disney said before he died: Kurt Russell. And that's supposed to be the truth. So anyway, the one common thing that I've seen in all of these movies, all the books, is that Elvis didn't trust people. He got picked on a lot and made fun of. He was wearing mascara before any guy had ever even, women weren't even wearing a ton of mascara back then, but he was. And he was he was a natural blonde. He was putting shoe polish in his hair, and he was obsessed with combing it back. He thought that he'd be training it by doing that. And then he would pull that little thing out here, and he was obsessed with like spinning it and twirling it and putting it in weird shapes and stuff. And he was always messing with his hair and popping his collar and all that stuff. And he was kind of considered maybe a little jerky, like he ignored people and he didn't talk to people. And that's because he was extremely shy. And his girlfriends were the ones that got him to sing and perform a little bit to get him to break out of all of that. But the constant is that as he started becoming more and more famous, he became more and more generous. So unlike most people who go backwards when they start getting fame and power and money, Elvis started to think back of all the people in his life that had an impression on him in a good way, because there were so many people that were doing bad things to him. So he might be driving around one day in a parking lot and see some dude from high school walking by who looked out for him one day. He never forgot that. Red is a perfect example. Red stood up for Elvis when he was getting ready to, these guys were going to cut his hair. Rednecks, they were going to cut all his hair. They were like, come on, boy, you don't do that down here. And they were going to mess him up because they thought he acted too black. And he was raised mostly by a black culture, and that's why he played that type of music, and he couldn't help that soul that was in him because his mom and dad had to work very hard, who supported him 100%, but they had to work very hard, and they were never home. And he was they were so poor and destitute. His twin brother died because he was malnourished. So they had no money. They were being raised in the same area as the black people in the black community that was struggling. So he grew up with those people and listened to that music and talked that way and ate that kind of food and so forth. That made him a true American, in my opinion. But anyway, he does get accused and ridiculed in the wrong way for stealing black people's music. He didn't steal anything. He can't help what color his skin is, The constant is that he was very giving. He looked out for people. He took care of people. There's so many, all of these stories that we have of Keanu Reeves and Jimmy Stewart and Tom Hanks and Bill Murray, all of those cool stories of the guy that did cool stuff when he was out on his own, they're all taken from Elvis. He was not only the first of everything, he was the first and the most, the best. He did everything to such an extreme, I'm going to leave you with one last story. And that is that And this is one of my favorites. Elvis was bringing his crew. He started getting a lot of money, and he loved spending it on his friends and family. He bought people houses and cars and all this kind of stuff. He's like, oh, I remember you. Hey, you want a car? You know, that kind of thing. So he's buying all his friends Cadillacs at the Cadillac dealership. And he buys many cars at this dealership. So he knows everything. They see him coming, and they're like, they close the doors, they lock him, they let him walk around, do his thing. Somebody else is in there, they throw him out. You know what I mean? So one day, Elvis is looking at all of these Cadillacs with his friends, and he's thinking about getting his first convertible one. And he knows that Sinatra has one because Nancy came to visit him driving Frank's convertible Cadillac. And so now he wants one too, you know? And they're looking and everything, and the sales guy is acting weird. And Elvis notices that he keeps going like this and looking outside, and there's a black woman, an older woman, and she's got groceries with her, and she's just staring in the window. She's not staring at Elvis. She's staring at the convertible Cadillac. And Elvis knows that. He can tell. That woman has no idea who he is. You know what I mean? She doesn't listen to the radio and go see shows and all that stuff. She doesn't look at magazine covers. She's a hard-working woman. She went to get groceries. She's going back to town to feed her family, right? And coming back from town, going to home to feed her family. And the guy is so bothered, and he looks around, he thinks that Elvis and Elvis's guys are bothered by it, that he goes outside and tells her to get out of there. He's scrambling, get out of here. You're annoying the customers, get out of here. And Elvis sees that. And he goes outside, and he goes, ma'am, excuse me. He goes, what's your favorite color? She's shocked that a white man would ask her that. And maybe at this point she did realize it was Elvis, who knows. But she said purple. And so Elvis went inside and said, I want a purple Cadillac. And the guy told him, we don't make a purple Cadillac. And he goes, well, you do now. I want a purple Cadillac. I want you to take this woman's information and where she lives, and I want you to deliver it to her. Also want an apology from you right now to her, and I want you to drive her home. That's what Elvis asked for. And then he went and talked to the manager, who was actually the owner of the dealership, and didn't get that guy fired. But he told him what happened, told him he didn't want him fired, but he told him that he wouldn't stand for it and he would never buy another car there again if it ever happened again. So he created an environment that women like that, whatever their race, their creed, their color, their height, whatever, could come in and browse in a fancy car dealership, and you couldn't tell them to leave. There are a lot of things that entertainers like Sinatra and Elvis, and you know, they did things. Janis Joplin, they broke barriers. They changed the way things were done, and they did it so subtly that they'll never get credit for it. Hey, thanks for watching.